Hey everybody, it's Brandon, the Weekend Cruiser, where I go on a weekend cruise just about every weekend. But this past week, I was on Royal Caribbean's Vision of the Seas, and I've got 5 things that I want to share with you on lessons that I learned on going on a Western Mediterranean cruise. The first one is that the itinerary truly matters. So when I booked this, I booked Vision of the Seas because I thought it went to nicer, more exotic ports because it's a smaller ship and can get into those locations. What I found out is, yeah, they're smaller locations, but there are also a lot of resort towns. So a lot of people are already coming to these places via plane or ferry to enjoy a summer vacation. So there's not as much stuff to do here. There's still a good bit of history, but there's not a lot to do. If you were to go on like one of the bigger ships that went to Majorca, or maybe you went over to Italy, there might be more things that you could actually do. I found this itinerary to be a little sleepy to me. Like, I did a lot of the same things in every port: a beach day, cafe, walking around and doing shopping. So it's not that those are bad things. If you want to do those things, I mean, I did them and I still had a good time. But I think that I was really looking for something more adventurous, and they weren't there. This is still, even though you're going to the Western Mediterranean, it's going to be more of a relaxing and a resort style cruise that you may find in the Caribbean, which I did not expect. I thought that I was going to be doing all sorts of adventures, and it was really more of a relaxing cruise. I also found out that I needed a sea day. So we booked an 8-night cruise with 7 ports. We were in port every single day somewhere. And by the end of it, I was crying uncle because I needed a sea day. And so I just stayed on the ship in probably one of the best ports, which was Valencia, Spain. And I chose not to get off because I was just exhausted and kind of, I don't want to say over it, but I was just over going off in every single port and doing, kind of my own thing and figuring it out. And it all kind of seemed to run together. So that's the second thing that I'll say that I learned on this, is to really research more of the excursions and things to do. I personally didn't find a lot to do when I was there, and other people that I talked to had, really, really long tours that aren't something that I want to do. Some of these tours were like 8 and 10 hours long, where they're taking you all over the place. And I'm sure that you learn a lot, but I don't necessarily want to do a charter bus with 60 people for 8 to 10 hours, taking up the entire day. So I would say definitely do a lot more research. I wish that I would have researched these ports a little bit more to see what I'm going to like to do, what my personality fits for, and then book that. I still enjoyed walking around, but literally by, the 6th port, I was kind of done because I felt like I had seen all the old stuff, if you will. I mean, it kind of just started running together. And I hate to say that because it sounds horrible, but I still appreciate history. But after a while, all the buildings kind of just look the same to me. The third thing that I had to really get comfortable with on this ship is, since I wasn't able to find adventure, or something that I learned was that I have to be good just relaxing and having a good time in a port and sitting down and not doing anything. It was almost like I needed to take my sea day that I wanted and think about those on land, but it's still a little bit different. But we wound up having 2 beach days. We wound up eating at cafes for hours while we were on this cruise. And that piece of it was really, really relaxing. It wasn't an adventure like I thought. And so I had to kind of slow my energy down to say, okay, today in this port, we're not going to do that much. We're just going to hang out. We're going to have a beach day, go to a cafe, and that's going to be it. And that's okay. I think that you just have to readjust your mindset. I, for whatever reason, thought that the Western Caribbean was going to be exotic and adventurous and doing all sorts of neat stuff. And that just wasn't the case with the ports that we went to. There was a lot of history to see, but from a doing perspective, there really wasn't much that I found, and maybe that's on me for not doing the research. If I go back, I promise you, I will be doing a lot more research on these ports, making a spreadsheet and probably over planning the next one to make sure that I have a really great time. The fourth thing that I learned is the Mediterranean is hot, y'all. Like, it gets really, really warm still in the Mediterranean, and I was there in the middle of September, and it was hot in some places. I mean, we are sweating and walking around needing water, going into markets and finding places to buy that so that we don't have to spend too much money. But it is really, really hot. Bring a hat. I think that that's something that I missed. I wish that I would have had a hat on here. I had my glasses. And bring plenty of sunscreen. So if you need sunscreen that you can travel with, I'll link below to the 3-ounce travel size that you can bring with you, because I stopped and bought sunscreen and paid almost €20 for just 1 bottle of sunscreen. So I'll be able to bring that back because we didn't use all of it, but it is really expensive over here. So make sure that you are bringing your own sunscreen so you don't have to buy it and you don't have to burn because there is a lot of time in the sun. Another thing that I learned, this is kind of a bonus tip, is watch what side of the street you are on. Sometimes you've got a sunny side, sometimes you've got a shaded side. Make sure that you are trying and actively going to that shady side as often as possible. You will thank me later. Even if you just started out, go to the shady side because there will be times where you cannot find any shade. And this is going to be a respite from, the rest of the time that you're going to be in the sun. The fifth thing that we learned, and this is one that we really learned in Ibiza for the most part, was taxis don't just pick you up. And that's probably been the theme throughout here in Barcelona, in Ibiza, in Corsica. You can't just hail a taxi. It doesn't work like that here. And Uber is not working over here. So I thought Uber was a larger company. Apparently they don't have a presence in the places we were going here. You're going to need to download one of the other apps. The two that we wound up using were Free Now, Free. So it doesn't mean your cab ride is free. Good job on them for marketing. It just means the cab is free. So it's Free Now. And the more popular one I would say was Cabify, was one that you could use. But here in Barcelona, know that if you download that, I would say download it in advance. The first time you go to use it, it's going to make you go through a mandatory 15-minute waiting period in order to call a cab. I don't necessarily understand why they have that rule, but that is a rule that they have here in Barcelona. So you're trying to get somewhere quick like I was, you're going to have to wait at least 15 minutes to be able to call that cab to come pick you up. You can still go to a hotel you're staying at or probably stop into a hotel if you're walking on the street to have them call somebody. And that's probably a quicker option, especially if you don't know what country you're in, or excuse me, if you don't know what app you need to use in the country you're in. That might be the best bet. And, pro tip is to walk into a hotel or a restaurant and see if they'll call you a taxi or a cab service. So that is a quick rundown of the 5 things that I learned on the Western Mediterranean cruise. Hopefully you take these and use them for your Western Mediterranean cruise so that you make sure that you have a great time and you are fully prepared. All right, everybody, this is Brandon, the Weekend Cruiser. Hoping to see you on a weekend cruise or longer sailing soon.